Chapter 6 continued. The waking, dream, and deep sleep states are under control of the spirit. This has been told earlier. When does that dream state occur? It occurs when the spirit appears. At that time, the waking state and the deep sleep states are as though they are dead. That is, the digestion of food, etc. occurs due to the strength of the spirit, which is the support of everything. With the help of that spirit, throwing aside all support, when one holds on to that supreme being, it comes to be experienced disinterestedly. Then the thought arises that I am being blamed as the form for support of the world. It is because of my support that the waking, dream, and deep sleep states are happening. Still, I have no connection with anyone else whatsoever. As a result, the existence of the world of waking state burns away. What it means is that the taste or attraction towards the world does not remain. This is the mystery about the sentence, Rago api Brahma drishtva vinashyati. Even though the connection of the sense organs with the sense objects may have been restored in the waking state, the taste for first-hand experience still gets destroyed after the vision of actualization. This is the sequential step for all the 8 superconscious meditative unions till their conclusion. Besides, this is the same sequence that will be experienced in the state of supraconscious meditative union. Since one has to understand that the experience of the glory of the absolute self-knowing of the Lord of Swananda is actualization of the Supreme Brahma, its absolute completion is definitely going to occur. Here, as per the words, Brahma Drishto Rago Vinashyati. With the intensity of such study and practice, the strength of sacrifice goes on increasing and the disinterestedness is experienced fully. After the sacrifice of the essence of causal matter, one experiences self-ascent through the strength of meditation of Soham. After attaining the Siddhi of reverse ascent, he becomes eligible to receive the Siddhi of self-knowing in meditative union. This means that after attaining maturity at each step, it has to be understood by the mind alone. After accomplishment of superconscious meditative union, total disinterestedness deeply enters the mind. Since the consciousness of differences is completely destroyed, there is no interest remaining in anything. When the 5 states of the body, namely the awake, dream, deep sleep, pure consciousness and liberated, melts away, then the consciousness of opposition or differences of opinion gets ignited, which is why it is known as self-consciousness. In order that this too gets dissolved, it is necessary to hold on to the tendency of restraint developed through supraconscious meditative union. With this yoga, of all types of opposition melts away and the experience of this state is known as Nirvikalpa Samadhi or unchanging purpose. All things considered, the result is that one goes beyond the state of Savikalpa or Nirvikalpa and the actualization of Swanand happens, which is nothing but the darshan of Brahma himself. After that, taste for all things goes away. It is said that even if one does not get food to eat, the liking for it does not go away. But that too goes away completely. In this manner, the entire spiritual practice of Yoga Bhumi, along with the serial order of importance of superconscious meditative union, has been demonstrated here because it was necessary to explain the result and the fruits of giving up the sense objects. Verse 57 specially reasserts this rule. If the intellect is lost in the absorption of the glory of self-knowing, it will remain content in the glory of Ganesh Brahma, which is considered steadfastness in yoga. Consider the statement, Mai Abheda Buddhir Yoga, to be indicative of this experience. To make this stable mind and intellect steadfast and tranquil, and in order to prevent the possibility of obstructions, he once again begins to explain from verse 54 onwards. Firstly, how does one recognize the characteristic of a steady external mind? It is only after completely attaining meditative union that this state is understood. But for yoga to become steadfast before death, he has to pay attention and make efforts to give up material objects. This internal expectation has been instructed in verses 55 and 56. In the commentary of Sri Yogendra, words Evam Ganesh Yogam Yogishwarupam cha Katayitva Tat Praptyartha Dvabhyamaha are expressed to indicate this very clearly. Yoga Prapti has been used to instruct the purpose of spiritual practice for the yogi. Thus, it is clear that through the determined practice of yoga, after giving up material objects, the yogi has a vision of the self-knowing Brahma in his heart. And after that, only the liking for material objects disappears. Therefore, when the practice of meditative union is going on, the knowledge of the invisible becomes established in the yogi's intellect, and his mind too begins listening to that intellect. But in spite of all this, suppose he comes under the control of the sense organs. Then what happens if he tries to give up the support of his intellect? This is given in the 57th verse. Vipaschidyate bhupam stitimasthaya yoginaha manthayitvedriyanyasya haranti balato manaha. He says, He bhaya vipaschid yogina sthiti bhasthaya yatase asya indriyani mana mantayitva balata haranti. This means that in order to attain actualization of Swaswanand, he takes the support of the state of meditative union. And the sense organs of the yogi who is practicing austerities tries to continuously encourage his minds towards the sense objects. In this manner, he tries to bring them under his control. They are literally driven off from his mind. So Shri Gajanan Prabhu says to King Varenya, the state of a yogi who is practicing yoga is accomplished in several ways. Listen to its serial order with attention, as it will help you to get the complete benefit. The intellect of a yoga seeker, which has become the nature of Swananda, who has given up the sense of body and all dualities, becomes one with the Atman. But the action is related to the destiny of the body, is kept going on by the mind. Even though the consciousness of the duality becomes equanimous, the illusion of being in that form continues to take place. If this happens again and again, then the mind that has become deluded can bring various kinds of illusions to the intellect. Therefore, it becomes necessary to gather his mind together by clinging to the joys of meditative union. Different types of dualities may arise, and a desire to enjoy them is created in the mind. Still, the body which undergoes actions, good or bad, according to one's destiny, has to be accepted. One has to remain firm in this manner. This is known as a joyous meditative union. Thus, the mind which has become peaceful merely by taking support of the discriminative spiritual practice, it remains absorbed in the intellect. Though the mind becomes steady, it continues with the interactions, as connections of the sense organs to the sense objects in the external world continue to exist. For transacting with the enjoyment of the sense objects, the sense organs are by nature outward going and covetous. They try to divert the attention of a peaceful mind again and again to look at the joys of dualities and engage in them. Since they are like that by nature, the enjoyment of the body as per its destiny becomes its immediate impulse. Outwardly, Since all the sense organs behave uniformly, its effect falls on the mind and makes it unstable. Therefore, there is every possibility that the peaceful state of yoga is devastated. That is the reason why one should keep the sense organs under control. Let us look at the views of Gargya Maharshi on the subject. He writes, and Shri Gajanana says, O king, the meaning of the word vipaschit is that the yogi who is accomplishing the actualization of self-knowing takes support of the yogic state and practices austerities such as meditative union. Since he has already accomplished the superconscious meditative union, the state of that yoga bhumi, which is of 4 types, namely karma, jnana, sama and sahaja, have to be attained in that particular serial order. The state of yoga bhumi through karma yoga, due to opposition, can be attained through surrendering the actions to Brahma. The yoga bhumi state through jnana yoga, which is the state of Brahma Jnan, being devoid of any opposition, is attained by being aware of Aham Brahmasmi. The state of yoga bhumi through sama yoga takes into consideration the reason or absence of it, and by remaining the same, that is by being indifferent. In the state of yoga bhumi through sahaja yoga state, the stand taken is that whatever has to happen as per one's destiny will happen, and it is happening. Therefore, remain at ease without any consciousness of anything. So, it is only after attaining these 4 states that one can be in the state of absolute Brahma. The taste or absence of taste for material and non-material things no longer exists. When the yogi is in such a state of, how is it possible for him, who is making efforts to attain psychic powers, to fall from this position? How is it that the blissful state of mind gets churned by the sense organs? He tells us about its characteristics. For example, when the sense organs of the eyes fall on a pretty woman, the mind receives the impulse from the eyes and begins to think whether that lady is good or bad. When this happens frequently, it is known as churning of the mind. Because without input from the mind, the sense organs cannot have that knowledge. Then the individual soul, the seeker, on getting assistance from the mind, begins to look at her with love and expectations. With the enchantment of the mind, he gets fickle and begins to desire to possess that object. If it is not achieved, then he becomes dissatisfied and his intellect begins to get fickle. This is falling from the state for the yogi. The same thing applies to all other sense organs as well. If we look carefully, it is the mind that is forcibly outraged by the sense organs. When this happens frequently, its effect on the intellect cannot be prevented. Once again, according to one's destiny, they keep getting repeated due to the defects of the remaining tendencies, and it is inevitable for it to happen that way. So, yuktastanivashe kritva sarvada matparo bhavet sanyatani indriyaniha yasya sakriti dhirmata. This verse 58 gives us an answer to the question, what should a yogi do in such a situation? He replies, Yuktastati vashe krutva sarvada matparo bhavet, meaning that the seeker who has benefited from the practice of meditative union should be alert to my presence, the glory of Swananda. In other words, his touch, speech, mind, feelings and everything else should be engaged in my worship with utmost resolve, and he should be vigilant that only good happens from all his sense organs. Then alone will his intellect that has become endowed with consciousness of Swanan become gratified. He goes on to elaborate this further. When the body is carrying on its activities according to its destiny, how does one pull back the sense organs that are running towards the sense objects? Listen to that. Take recourse to the earlier mentioned bliss of the meditative union with awareness. Then the sense organs will remain under control. There is no solution other than self-control. Looking repeatedly at external objects is the skill of the sense organs. Therefore, one should have a specific kind of restraint on each of them. If one adopts the rituals of Dharma in the worship of Ganesha and engages himself in them, then the sense organs will remain under one's control and will not run after the sense objects. In this manner, when sense organs are given certain rules to follow, the mind will always remain satisfied. Obviously, then the intellect too will not have any other taste, and it will always be immersed in the bliss of the divine. Therefore, the origin of the fall in the state of yoga is the outward flowing tendencies of the sense organs. If we bind them through some specific rules, then it will not find space to run into other channels. In short, to those seekers who are desirous of attaining the nectar of Swananda, I, who am the self-knowing Lord of Swananda, will think about him all the time. So Sri Gajanana Prabhu says, Sanyatan Indriyaniha Yasya Sa Krita Dhir Mata, which has been explained above. The stage beyond Asat, Sat, Sama and Sahaja are the fourfold self-knowing power centers, all of which attain completion and merge into the Abheda meditative union where one experiences the self-knowing Siddhi. One has to understand this to be the Lord of Swananda. This special meaning necessarily proves to be positive. Such men who are devoted to me never get distracted from Swananda meditative union. King Varenya listened to all this narration. Perhaps it may happen that the yogi falls from the state of yoga that he has attained. How does that happen? We shall see that in the next audio.